Every great defensive player becomes available in the National Football League through free agency or even through a trade. And Omar Khan and Mike Tomlin swoop in, get their guy, pay him market rate, long-term even, and you're not surprised in the slightest when it happens. Good morning to you. Good Thursday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Steelers. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into hockey and or baseball, I also offer daily shots of Penguins and Pirates that I hope you'll additionally check out. There's nothing about that scenario that I just laid out for you that would make you go, whoa, no, man, they'd never do that. When they gave up the first-round pick for Minkah Fitzpatrick, which obviously turned out to be a really nice move, no matter what you think of Minkah's showings the past couple seasons, no one was surprised. In-season trade right after Ben Roethlisberger was done for the season early on, no one was surprised. Patrick Queen, here again, independent of anything that you might think of how he did in the 2024 season, at the time that he was signed, he was one of the hotter, sexier names out there. Big money, big commitment, didn't matter. Steelers got their guy. And the reaction around here, in addition to everybody being excited, I mean, that's normal, had nothing remotely resembling an element of surprise to it. Why? Because they're defensive guys. And that's it. That's it. Let's not pretend it's something else. It's because this head coach in particular, the big commonality over the past 2 decades, will embrace or endorse the big move so long as the big move is on that side of the ball. And I really hope we're not in for another one of those this offseason. I don't know that the Steelers can afford, metaphorically anyway, to stick with that mindset. And here's what I mean in particular today in saying so. Yeah, they've got the $60 million in cap space, and that unto itself is something that just makes the hair stand up on end. You can easily envision this team, this roster at any number of positions being upgraded dramatically with the seeming snap of a finger at some point this month. And if it were to happen on the defensive side, that comes time after time with the added feel that, oh, wow, not only did they bring in this guy, but he's here on top of Cam Hayward and TJ Watt and everybody else, and you start thinking these great things about this defense. Don't let it happen if they do it. And here's hoping that they don't do it. Couple reasons for that. One is that the defense, I think, would really benefit, more so than the offense even, from some younger blood. And if that means D-line in a D-line rich draft, go nuts. Get some big dude who crashes down on the quarterback and plugs the run and everything else and make that happen. But the other reason is that the money eventually is going to have to start moving its way back to the offense, where it hasn't been for far too long. The main reason for that, of course, is that the Steelers haven't had a quarterback to pay since Ben Roethlisberger. Now, I have no idea where this Justin Fields thing is going to go, meaning in terms of price. I do know that they're really kind of in a tough spot without him, so they need to figure that out. They need to address that. And if they need maybe to overpay a little bit, then that's just the way it's going to have to go. But that's not it. That's not it. You can go ahead and get a running back. There's a lot of running backs in this draft, too. You don't necessarily have to pay one. Running backs are obviously going to be more effective for you when they're younger. And as I've said multiple times, I wouldn't be offended at all if the Steelers even used a first-round pick on a wide receiver. But I've heard from absolutely nobody that they intend to do that. So along comes the development yesterday that DK Metcalf has asked to be traded out of Seattle. Anybody who's listening to a program like this doesn't need me to tell them who Metcalf is and what he represents. I'll throw in that he's 27 years old, which is still a nice number for a wide receiver. He plays a style of football that lends itself to aging better than, let's say, some sort of straight line sprinter, meaning, big body who can do a lot of damage in other ways, including fighting for the football. Now, he has another year left on his contract with the Seahawks on what originally was a 3-year, $72 million term that was signed in 2022. So it's kind of reasonable to expect that he's going to be in the 30 million range on some kind of extension that carries him into those years in which he might not be expected to make as much, while, of course, getting as much as possible in guaranteed and signing bonus and everything else. He has made clear that wherever it is that he'd go, he'd want to do the new contract with them and not with the management in Seattle. Now, what is the reflex that you have when I share that with you? No way. Steelers are never doing that. They don't do that. They never would. No chance. They're not going to sign with a wide receiver. Never. And to that, I will reply, why? Why not? And how long are the Steelers going to live in a world where their wide receivers don't make anywhere near the money that wide receivers make elsewhere? Is it going to be a matter of just constantly replenishing through the draft and keeping the cost of that position down? If so, is even a sliver of your motivation for doing so that you can continue to spend all of your money on all the things that the head coach actually enjoys, meaning defensive players? Has to change. It has to change. And now would be an ideal time for that to change. But I really don't anticipate that it will. When we come back, J1Q.
This segment of Daily Shot is brought to you by our good friends at Mike's Beer Bar. They're located on Federal Street, directly across from PNC Park. Mike has more than 500 beers on tap, including from more than 50 local breweries. Stop in and say hello. Tell Mike we sent you. Mike's Beer Bar.
Today's J1Q comes from Jack, who says, DK, that was a really interesting Wednesday episode. It made me think while walking the dogs, mostly about the 7 to 8% difference in the percentage of clean pockets among the top half of the teams in the NFL. Does that mean that even with the best offensive line in the league, the Steelers would only be buying 7% fewer pressures? And wouldn't that mean that it's even more impactful to have a quarterback who can deal with the pressure than to have the line reduce it slightly? Yes, Jack. Yes. Also, yes to Jack's dogs if they happen to agree with him. I don't have enough agreement to share here between Jack and his army of canines and anyone else who would happen to see this. And it's one of the main reasons that all along, not just given the current circumstance, that I've been in favor of Justin Fields being this team's quarterback rather than Russell Wilson, because Justin can get out of there, and Russ only thinks he can still get out of there, whereas he can't. Also, Justin's less likely, far less likely actually, to veer off script and force an already inexperienced line to do things that they aren't even being asked to do in advance. Yes, the quarterback who can make a difference back there with his feet hugely neutralizes this factor in either direction, better or worse. It's just not as big a deal. It's still important. You still would like for Fields to be able to drop back and look around and make plays from the pocket as you would with any quarterback, but that's easier to do if your line is feeling good about itself, if your line is executing, if your line isn't constantly getting tagged with sacks that they have very little to do with. And if you get some of these linemen in a sensitive mood, they'll fess that up to you. They find it frustrating. I don't mean Russ specifically. I mean, they find it frustrating to do everything about their jobs correctly, only to have the quarterback go run into a sack and everyone says, aha, look, Dan Moore gave up another one. When maybe he actually didn't. Maybe he actually did everything that he was supposed to do and practiced toward all week. So yeah, I think that is a valid takeaway from that survey, that the range wasn't all that great. The range of difference between the worst pocket and the best pocket out of the 16 teams that were listed, and that's all it was, by the way, was 16. Well, it wasn't teams, it was quarterbacks. It was the quarterbacks who had the worst pocket time while also having attempted 250 plus attempts. I appreciate the question, Jack. I appreciate you and your dogs, and I appreciate everybody who listens to Daily Shot of Steelers. Don't forget, we have a live double shot of Steelers coming up today at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. That's available on all social media networks simultaneously, but predominantly so on YouTube. Just go to YouTube, type DK Pittsburgh Sports. You'll see our channel. You'll have no trouble finding it. This show will be back tomorrow.